All right, awesome. Hey, everybody, welcome to Tabletops Presents the PTSD Awareness Month Veterans Roundtable. So, I, of course, have had the honor to bring all these vets and actives, all of our military folk here, and we're just going to have a quick conversation about mental health awareness and kind of break away some of these stigmas that we've been told for the last few years and how maybe tabletop role playing can help you, and some of the different stories that our wonderful cast or group here can share. So real quick, we're just going to go around the table, let everybody know who you are and where they can find you. Some of the faces you might already recognize, others we're just kind of, and then of course we also have a person who I don't know if he has a presence in the TTRPG content creation community, but he is a veteran and deserves to be here as well. So that's why we invited Casey, who can tell you a little bit about his story as well. So let's go starting at first, Operation Tabletop. If you just want to take it first to let us know what's going on here.
Yeah, hey everybody. Seth, president and founder of Operation Tabletop. Been fortunate enough to be on Tabletop Misfits a couple times. And the intent for today is to just share some stories and experiences to inspire and destigmatize seeking help. That's been the whole theme of this month's PTSD Awareness Month Gameathon, where we were doing games every Saturday. This roundtable is the end cap to the PTSD Awareness Month, where we have all these great veterans who've come together to share their insights and stories, and in the PTSD Awareness Month style.
Awesome. Let's go with real quick. Let's go with Arclight Court next.
Hello everyone, I am Arc, or Arclight Court. I am a TTRPG content creator, veteran of California Army National Guard for 8 years, and I have deep connections with reaching out through the military in order to get mental health destigmatized, as well as using the sources that are available for people within the military to get the help that they need and share their stories and share their time and space with everybody.
Awesome. Let's go with the main man here in the audience here. Luke, do you want to give us an idea who you are, if anybody doesn't know who you are? As soon as he turns it, there we go.
I had to take myself off mute, so sorry about that. Good to be here. Luke Gygax. I was fortunate enough to be born into the first gaming family, or RPG gaming, I should say, as a son of Gygax. So I've been gaming all my life. Joined the Army when I was 18, and I served in all components of the Army, a regular Army reserve component, and retired out of the Active Guard Reserve program in the California Army National Guard. I was an AJC 149 Armor way back when in Seaside, and I finished up my career in Long Beach at the 224 Sustained Brigade. I retired out of there. Good to see James here as well from Tabletop Misfits. I've met him a few times face to face at Genghis Khan and talked about various experiences. And then, of course, my writing partner and all-around helper and good guy, Matt Everhart. It's good to see your face here as well, so appreciate it. And I do some writing and organize a convention called GaryCon, which is a memorial convention in honor of my dad. Every year, and I get to appear. My next conventions are going to be Gen Con, Dragon Con, Gamehole, and Luca Games and Comics in Italy for my first time, so it'd be awesome. But yes, absolutely, I get an opportunity to talk to a lot of veterans and others who have challenges, and role-playing gaming has been very, very helpful to folks, basically giving them access to close friends, building up those bonds, and encouraging them when they need it, which I think it's oftentimes easy to isolate yourself with PTSD not a mental health professional by any stretch, but those are kind of my understandings, and it's been very helpful. And I always want to be able to get back to the gaming community and the veteran community. So thanks for having me on today.
Of course. So I know we have Denny here, and I know Denny doesn't do tabletop, but Denny, if you want to just give an idea of why you're here, because I think it's a good reason. There's a good reason for it.
Yeah, absolutely. What's up, everybody? I'm Denny. I'm a retired Green Beret, mental health advocate and podcaster. I am the host and creator of Security Out Podcast. It's a mental health advocacy podcast that's directed to not just veterans and first responders, but to everybody nowadays, because as we've realized in the whole grand scheme of things, mental health is something that affects everybody. It's not just isolated to us veterans or first responders. It's largely all of us in this world.
Awesome. Matt, you're up next.
I don't think I have my mic muted. All right, hey guys, Matt Everhart, as Luke indicated, working a lot side by side with him on a company called Gaxworks. We produce a lot of D&D content. We're actually in the process of working in some Shadow Dark conversions for those of you that are interested in the old school stuff, converting some of our current stuff into that rule set. We also have magazine through a Patreon called G20 Magazine, which comes out every month with adventures in the world of Okarim, which is Luke's campaign setting, if you will, for Dungeons and Dragons. As far as my background goes, I am 26 years in the military. Started out in 97 in the Army, enlisted in the Army, commissioned through the Army, and then in 2008 switched over to the Air Force. I'm currently here at Andrews Air Force Base out in the East Coast, trying to finish up my 20 active years. I'm currently in the active duty Air National Guard. This topic in particular really strikes a chord with me, so I'm happy to be here and glad we can talk about it.
Awesome. And Casey?
Casey, retired USAF, TAC PJ TAC. I joined at 17, retired at 37. Just like Matt, I did join in 1997, but fortunately I had all active years, so I got to retire in 2017. I got invited here by Operation Tabletop. I don't have any sort of influence in the what do we call it? What do you guys call it? TTRG, in the role playing environment. I just started to get back into it to find more friends and dive in and experience new things and old things alike. So I super appreciate you guys inviting me out.
Yeah, definitely. Seth, do you want to kind of give us a breakdown of like what you'd like us to go over, or do you want me to handle that? It's up to you.
Yeah, man, it's your show.
All right.
You know,
yeah. I mean, I know it's my show, but this is a big thing for you. If you watch the channel, of course, make sure that you keep an eye on. We're getting a couple things that are going to pop up in the chat. The first is going to just be a breakdown of all the guests that are here, and then the second one, of course, is going to support the actual nonprofit that Seth runs, Operation Tabletop, which connects people for TTRPGs with mental health. So yeah, just kind of go around the circle, of course, and just kind of asking some experiences. I know a lot of us have been through, most of you, many more years than I was. Sadly, mine was medically, and I had to be discharged early. But being somebody who's held a higher level of clearance, this is one thing that really hit me hard when I got out, where it was like, do I go get mental health checked? Do I make sure that everything is taken care of that way? Because for me, that was a worry. I know people who had to wield, if you're wielding a gun or if you're flying, those are big things for people like that. So if anybody wants to start, it's perfectly fine. Just kind of your experience of not only how tabletop and mental health kind of blended together for you, but also any experiences where you've had that problem, where mental health has kind of been pushed to the side because of things like that in the military. Because we need to definitely keep that awareness up for our vets and our active duty. So whoever wants to take it.
Well, shoot, I'll start it off.
Go for it.
So, yeah, a lot of times we tend to think that mental health is a weakness thing, right? You're active duty, reserve, National Guard. At some point you've heard, if you go somewhere to talk about your feelings and what you're going through, it's going to be the end of your career. That was always present in mine. And I never saw any individuals like me going towards help. And you're a Green Beret, you're special operations. You're supposed to never break. You're not supposed to be vulnerable. And that key word, you're not supposed to be vulnerable. We see vulnerability as a deterrent. We see something that is in the antithesis of masculinity. And I'm here to tell you right now that I'm alive today and I'm here with you guys. I'm able to do what I'm doing because I was vulnerable, because I was able to finally say, you know what, I need help. That was the hardest thing to do. I was a warrant officer on the Special Forces Detachment, and I wanted to help everybody else before I got my own help. And the reality is, we wear this mask that says, I am stoic, I am the best of the best. There's nothing that's ever gonna break this. But when you get in your most, moments alone, when you're at home, you're breaking apart. You're experiencing depression, anxiety, and a whole slew of other things that you don't have a frame of reference for. There's people out there that do. There are people out there that can easily tell you, like, hey, we can overcome these things. Here are some tools, here are some resources. But we don't get access to that unless we're willing to be vulnerable, unless we're willing to say, I need help. And in my journey, that was the first step to getting help, being vulnerable enough to say, I need help. And the thing about our community that's very difficult is we bullshit for so long. We bullshit because we want to get access to care, but only for physical stuff. We only want to get help for the physical stuff, and it's mind, body, and spirit. I focused on the body for so long, and then when the mind was deteriorating, that's put issues towards there. I'm like, hey, I need to get help with this. My cognitive slipping. I can't do X, Y, and Z. But I never wanted to divulge the truth about what I was really dealing with. And that ultimately led me down a really dark path where I almost did something completely stupid. And I'm not afraid to say that I almost did go down that road if it wasn't for that one moment of vulnerability with a counselor that I've been seeing for close to a year. But just like I said earlier, we bullshit, we lie, we only give that much of the truth because we're hoping maybe it'll get us somewhere to get more help. And you go to all these different resources and they try helping you, but you're not being vulnerable and honest enough with them. So of course you're not getting the help you need. There's a lot of fear, right? There's a lot of myths, and I talk about this a lot. We have to kill the myth. We have to slay the myth that you're not going to be able to have your security clearance, that you're not going to be able to retire and have that high-paying job, that you're going to be some sort of pariah that nobody wants to talk to, and that the entire world's going to look at you with a different lens. And that's not true. Mental health and physical health are the same lane. Once you start getting help, once you start peeling that layer, really getting back to what's really going on with you, you realize that the enemy is so much easier to defeat once you have an understanding of what it is. I didn't know what anxiety was. I didn't understand what depression was. I just knew for a lot of times I would just want to be alone and away. And I have these moments where of sheer panic and terror inside, but I'm just driving to work. What is that? I don't know what it is, but I'm not going to say anything. And once I started realizing that I wasn't just one of the few, but one of the many dealing with this, I realized that it happens to all of us. If you're a member of GWAT and you've deployed and you've been in the military, or you grew up in a really bad environment, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And when you finally understand that, and you finally have an understanding of like, oh, okay, I am human. We are meant to break. If you put something under so much stress for so long, it will break. Then you understand it's okay. There's science to this. Then you can build back better. Then you can get better. And then you can come back and have that job and continue out your career. I mean, the statistics are proven and it's shown. If you raise your hand, if you're willing to be vulnerable and you get help, your career doesn't have to end. You can take a knee, you can get help, you can get all the resources you need, and then go back in the fight and finish out the career with 20 years. So that's been my experience, knowing that mental health wasn't just something that just crept along, but it's something that's with you your entire life. You don't know what you don't know, but now there's enough of us making enough noise out there, sharing and being vulnerable enough to come on things like this and be able to tell our stories. Because the reality is a lot of us men are dealing with a lot and we're not willing to talk about it, and we have to. It's the only way we get better.
That's a nice way to start this whole thing right here. So we're definitely here to talk about mental health awareness and what we've been through. We're kind of just giving an extra spin to it to show that there are other options out there, even if they're on top of what we've already been given. Matt, I'm kind of curious because you said this hits home. You want to kind of give a little bit of a breakdown on that?
Yeah, sure. Well, both from a personal and from leadership perspective, have run into this in the past. Have run into the problem in the past where individuals that you think you're super close with, you think that you are keeping tabs with them, you keeping up with their day-to-day life, you understand where their stressors are, you feel like you understand where their stressors are, and then one day it's just over. They're gone, and you or me in this case, that's a burden that is really tough to bear sometimes, and it's happened. And again, I've been fortunate enough that it hasn't. The statistic hasn't caught up with me. It was somebody that was a personal, like, friend or family, but certainly people under my, on my watch or in my unit or in my, on the base. Seems to happen over and over again. You feel like we have all these resources now. In fact, the resources that are available now are mountains and light years beyond what they were when I joined the military. When I first came in, it was the stigma was absolutely there, and I'm sure Luke can attest to that as well. But suck it up, get back at it. Make sure that your ruck and your gear's ready to go tomorrow. I don't want to hear about your complaining. Everybody's got there's an old adage that used to be said. It's not so much anymore. That it's not coming to mind at the moment. But
I'm waiting for one of you to pipe it off. I guarantee it's sitting on somebody's tongue.
Yeah. But anyway, so it's always a surprise, I guess, is what I'm getting at when somebody thinks that that's the only way out. The suicide's the only way out. It really hits home with me, and I've had it multiple times over the last 10 years in particular as I get into different leadership positions at different bases, and it just never gets easier.
I know we don't have Luke for the whole time, but is there anything you want to share with that, Luke?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I might be the old guy here. I joined in 1989, so we're still fighting the Soviet Union when I joined, and I joined as an infantryman. So it was about mainly man stuff, and rub some dirt in it. It'll be okay. And I went to Desert Storm as I was 20, just 20 years old, and all the guys were about my age, right? 18 to 22 or something like that, most of us. And fortunately, I really wanted to, honestly, I was very excited to get in combat and to kill somebody, right? That was what we trained to do, right? I wanted to get close to the enemy and kill some Iraqis. I didn't. I was the driver of a Bradley. We did get in some engagements, but as the driver, obviously, I'm not directly responsible for stuff. One of my buddies was a gunner, and he did end up taking out some people. And the thing that he learned later, obviously very shortly after, is he was using thermals and going through a town, and he saw some movement in a window, got appropriate authorization to shoot right from his commander, Bradley commander. But it turns out the guy was hanging out the window with a piece of white cloth, right, trying to surrender. But you don't know that, right? But I'm telling you that put a lot of pressure on that young man. And, he would cry about it. And that made us all pretty uncomfortable, right? But we understood, at least I understood in my heart how that would feel. We trained to take on a combatant, right? And that's our job. But if someone's trying to surrender, we want to, I think people generally want to do the right things and follow those things. That's just one example where I immediately said, oh, wow, just deal with that kind of stuff. It doesn't work. But I'm not sure about the mental health services there. I wasn't very, very close to them. I knew them, but we weren't super tight. But I imagine this presses on people. I've spoken to Vietnam veterans and some of the pressures they had. Speaking to others about Korea and World War II. I mean, it's been there for a long time. I have noticed, for me that, uh, just over the years, things have changed for the positive. Leadership talks about seeking help. They don't, it's less of a stigma. It's still, I mean, it was still stigmatized even in like about 2012, 2014. If people were going to seek help, that was, they're like, yeah, you can, but I don't know if I would, right? That was kind of what people would say. Towards the end of my career, I got out in 2022, so probably the last couple of years. I remember talking to some senior people in the guard, right, which is probably a little different than active duty. I bet they're more permissive or more accepting of these sorts of change because so many of them are civilians, right? There's a small full-time force. But this is a full-time person, and she talked about her PTSD and coping strategies. And I was trained as a master resiliency trainer, and there are some really great techniques that work. Breathing techniques, mental exercises that help get you out of the cycle and thinking. So there's some really wonderful tools out there, and I think it has changed for the better. There's still work to be done though. I think as young, especially as young men, I can't speak to being young female, uh, and I think you look at the military as a strong or macho role, and being able to understand that sometimes it's okay to say, hey, this happened. I'm struggling with this situation, and getting some tools to fix it is okay. And that can be very, very challenging. So, um, probably one of the best things we can do is talk about it here in a forum where someone can see it who may be struggling with these sorts of things. Let them know, hey, you know what? Gosh, I've had those feelings before. Me personally, I have, right? I went through some hard stuff where I thought, man, this it's never going to get any better. Of course it did. Of course it did. We all go through ups and downs in life, and learning that there's that happens sometimes. It feels pretty bad. But being able to reach out to some friends, even maybe mentors, other people that you trust, a professional counselor if that's available to you, or reaching out like that. Oftentimes, just sharing and talking about it, and getting some tools that will help you get you through there because you have hope for the future. And it is very sad. And I've had people not while I was in a command position, but it's in my organization, who obviously chose suicide, and it's heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking to the unit. I mean, even as a brigade staffer, when a company lost somebody, it hurt me. It hurt me to hear about it, and take the report and pass that information on up. It's very hard. So, if you're out there, if you're suffering, you've got some concerns, please reach out to resources, seek help, talk to a friend, go together if you need to. But there's nothing wrong with seeking help, and believe me, you can and will get better. It's just a temporary thing. So that's all I would want to stress. And thank you guys all for caring and reaching out and taking the time to help others.
Wow. Between the three of you, I don't even think I need to talk. Anyway, no, I appreciate all this. And hopefully it is getting to people that are watching, that are realizing that this is something that is not, it's not hidden. It's not, questionable. It is important to be looked at in all ways. Will, Seth, Casey, anything you guys want to say about all this?
Yeah, I can chime in.
Go for it.
So, at an early age, when I had joined the military, I had always thought that mental health. I always thought that it was there, that individuals were there to help you, and I started to realize throughout my career that there was all these checks and balances in place. Like after you get out of a deployment, we had to stop in Germany and decompress, and they would put us in these counseling sessions. And I'm saying it now, even though back then I didn't do this. They ask you a lot of these loaded questions, and because you're fearful of losing that deployment status, I answered them the way that they wanted to hear, right? And I realized later on that some individuals should have, including myself, should just answer those honestly, because you're not only putting yourself in danger, you're possibly putting somebody else in danger by not answering honestly and getting that help that you need. And because of that, we lost three individuals almost to the date. We lost one to suicide, and the following year we lost another individual to suicide, and then another to suicide. So within a 3 year span within the group, we lost three guys. And I was angry at the time, but I look back on it. If those guys had just sought the help that they needed, I'm guilty of not answering honestly, and I'll admit that. But I was super afraid of losing my deployment status, but I shouldn't have been. Those guys that answered honestly, I've linked up with people, afterwards, and they said they answered that stuff honestly, and they didn't lose their deployment status, or they got the help they needed, and then they were able to deploy again. So it's something that you definitely you need to answer that stuff honestly, and get the help when it's there. Um, I wish I had answered more honestly back then, but I all I can do is look back on it and learn.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And kind of what I was getting at earlier is that we feel like the resources that are available now, I don't feel like, I know they are much more prevalent than they used to be. And you mentioned Casey talking about how how if you are the individual, if I'm not answering those questions truthfully, like, not only is it hurting me, but possibly hurting somebody else. And I think there's two factors to that. One, um, in the event that you are in that position, and I say you generally, not you, Casey, but like me, for example, if I'm in that position that I feel like I've got to, I don't have any other escape, I've got no other route, and I decide to go that route, I'm potentially hurting somebody or putting somebody in danger by taking my own life. But on the other side of that, obviously, is the masculine, the macho part of it that we were talking about before, where I haven't said anything, and so everybody in the room now also kind of feels like, because nobody else is speaking up, I don't want to be the oddball. I don't want to be the one guy that's going to speak up and say something. So I'm just going to keep quiet. And yeah, that's I think that's a lot. I feel like a lot of the suicides that happen today are for that very reason. The resources are there, but you still have to take advantage of them. You still have to be honest, an honest broker, even if not for yourself, but for the guy and gal next to you.
Yeah, I just want to
Yeah.
add one thing to that, Matt. We use the term masculine and macho, and it's like, if it's devoid of emotion and feeling, and that couldn't be more wrong. We need to change that as men. It's part of our culture. We were fed this idea of what a warrior was: bad heavy metal music, bad montage of guys kicking indoors. I'm like, oh, that's masculinity. I'm like, no, masculinity completely takes in emotional intelligence. Masculinity completely takes in the ability to be able to talk about the tough things. We look back historically, we always like to highlight Viking culture and we're wolves and all these different things. Like, no, look back at our warrior culture. Men went out and went to war, went to battle. They came back. They integrated with their tribe, with their people, and they shared the load. They told stories of what happened. They integrated with the community again. They were able to talk amongst each other. The idea that masculinity does not take into account feelings and emotions is completely stupid. It was fed to us by people that didn't understand it. The strongest thing you can do is stand up and say, I'm a man. I have feelings. I understand my emotions. I understand what I'm going through. It's not about being this false stoic. Like, in fact, like we take away from the actual stoics by saying that it is devoid of emotions, when in reality it's not. It's filled with emotion. There's a strength in being emotionally intelligent. All of us need to understand that. If you don't know where to begin, start talking with a professional counselor and therapist. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I walked around for 3 months with a feelings wheel because that was the first time in my life that I understood I had more feelings than just anger and happiness. Like, There's a whole spectrum out there of emotions that are important for us to understand so we can be better fathers, better friends, better husbands. So we need to
But you had
understand
more than
right
just
now.
anger.
Yes, there is. And there's a
Oh man, you
beauty
had
to
two.
it.
You had two.
There's
You
a
were like,
beauty of it because anger is such a powerful emotion. And then it becomes overpowering. And we think that everything that we're feeling is, oh, I'm angry. Wait, no, no, no. I'm upset, but I'm disappointed. I failed this test today. I'm not going to pass this aspect of the Q course. Man, that sucks. It's not anger, it's disappointment. And that
Anger is
clarity,
often
yeah,
misconstrued with sadness or
yes,
anxiety. Anger is how
absolutely.
most men cry.
Yes,
That's that
get so
response
angry.
because that's all we
Yep.
knew.
Yes, and we see it in little kids. We see it in little boys. But I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit I didn't grow up with a father. I didn't have a strong man. I grew up with a predator. I didn't have somebody that was intelligent, emotionally intelligent, to sit down and take a knee and say, "Hey, son, the reason why you're crying right now, it's not because you're angry, you're disappointed, your toy broke." Those are the conversations we need to have right now. I'm telling you, one of the biggest things that we have to fight is this idea, this stereotype that emotions aren't for men, that emotions aren't for masculinity. Masculinity is important. It's part of us. We need to embrace it, understand that emotional intelligence comes with it.
that's a great point. And, I do have to step away. I have a prior engagement, but I just wanted to say that I think I think getting talking to people who understand, uh, who have some a baseline of experience is probably really helpful because it may be difficult to talk to people who haven't gone through those similar experiences. So, man, I so see the utility of like the veteran VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars or American Legion. For a lot of people, those could be great. If you have gaming groups that you can band together who are veterans, they might understand that. And if you're still serving, still in uniform, or around military bases and stuff, being able to mentor some leaders and give them some tips. And
Yeah, it's no joke.
so when people come to them, they know how to how to kind of suss that out maybe and get to that root cause and help them get on the right path and teach that skill down and pass it on down to others. And I know, I think your NCO chains are doing mentorship as well, and certainly the officer chain should be. Oftentimes overlooked, but through mentorship, I think you can really pass that on to your people who are still in uniform. And then, yeah, maybe it's a good idea to join the VFW. And if you dealt with it, maybe you can help some other folks who are dealing with it and get them on a positive path too. So, again, thank you for having me on. And I'm going to have to jump off. So, thanks, James. Thanks, Matt. And everybody else was really great speaking with you.
It was
See you at
good
Gen
seeing
Con.
you again, sir.
All right, take care, man. Bye bye.
All right. Wow. This has been crazy. Like, we haven't touched tabletop at all yet, and it's been such an incredible opportunity. No, this is crazy, right? Like, we're just a bunch of guys sitting around talking about something that's very important to all of us in a different setting. And Will, sorry, you haven't had a chance to talk yet. I was curious on your end. So
You're good. So I during the 8 years that I was in, I had 8 members of my individual unit commit suicide, all within the span of 3 years. 2 of them were very close friends of mine that I grew up with. Not only was the unit I was in a pivotal part of my military experience, but it was also the same unit that my father served in the National Guard. My father is a 20-year veteran. He was a drill instructor, transitioned over to the National Guard side. When he went to the National Guard side, it was the first time he got deployed out of the 8.5 years he spent active. He did more deployments National Guard than active side. The unit I went to was like home. It was like family. These were all men and women that I grew up around that hadn't transferred, found their military camaraderie, found their brotherhood, their sisterhood, their family there. And in the course of my time there, I experienced a plethora of them make the hard choice and stick to it. And nearing the end of my time in the military, of my military career, I was very similar to what everyone had said. I was forcing myself to be this false stoic, I was shouldering a lot. I was carrying a lot. I wasn't unpacking or unloading or removing any weights at any point in time. That it affect my relationship with my wife, and we had separated. And it was during that time that I felt like the statistic was going to catch up with me now, and I was going to be a part of the numbers that everybody talks about. And funnily enough, tying it to tabletop, my best friend that I started playing D&D with online through forum chats and things of that nature joined the active duty side, was stationed in Alaska, came back to California, and we ended up in the same unit. And in the middle of one night late conversation, oh, I used to play D&D. Oh, me too. What did you play? Oh, my character was a druid named Oakhart. Wait a second. Did your druid play alongside this half elf who is a thief named Rokai? I did. Ian, Will, the whole like crossing of paths out of nowhere moment. Uh, and in one of those late night conversations after everything had occurred and things were happening, he recommended me to the military one source, the united resource for all members of each one of the different branches, and said you can talk to a professional, you can get help, you can get answers, you can get understanding, you can get clarity. Trust me, I did it. And it was just me and him, and even having your battle buddy tell you, hey, I'm going to be vulnerable with you so that you can be vulnerable now too. He sat down with me for 4 hours. We had maybe 6 hours to get rest before we had to start cooking the next day all over again. We spent 4 hours on his laptop getting me signed up through one source, getting me a non-medicinal psychiatrist and psychologist to do all my conversations with, because I still had that fear and stigma of if they put me on medication or if it's documented, I'm not going to get to deploy. They're going to take my rank. They're going to do all of these negative impacting things that's only going to compile to all of this. And Darren, my psychiatrist, an amazing man, was the one who brought me again full circle to D&D and to tabletop role playing games. He said, "Okay, you don't want to do, I see you don't want to do the medication route. You don't want to dive into any of the psychotropics or medicines. Let's look at other creative outlets." He specialized in comic books, video games, and board games.
Well, if you
And he
couldn't pick
said,
the best option for yourself,
and I didn't even pick him. That was the best part. It was almost destiny that I ended up with Darren, and he recommended fifth edition, which had just come out in 2014. Try it out. You don't play as a character though. I want you to make a world. I want you to make a world that has your fears. I want you to make a story that has all of the sadness, all of the anger, all of the jealousy, all of the anxiety. I want you to make those actual monsters, and I want you to get the closest people to you who would be willing to play this game with you, and let them help you fight these monsters. Let them show you how you can approach these things and combat them and deal with them and talk with them, reason with them, rebuild from the damage that's been created by them and move forward. And thankfully, through that, mine and my wife's relationship reflourished, rekindled. We've never been closer since September 14th, 2014, when we sat down to play that first session all the way to now. And so there's so many wonderful resources. There are so many wonderful things that not only can benefit you and your mental health and your the problems that are arising with you, but can also help all of the other people around you get a greater understanding of just how much it's affecting you. Because you could tell somebody you're sad, but if you can show them what the sadness is doing to you or doing against you, they have a greater understanding of that now. They can now understand why it's harder to get out of bed, why maybe you haven't taken a shower in 3 days, maybe you haven't done the laundry, maybe you're driving a little too fast at night or in the early hours of the morning. Giving them this descriptive analysis of this issue that you're facing and allowing them to go, oh, this is what it's like for you. this is what you're seeing, this is what's sitting on your chest, they have more of a draw to, okay, I know how to help with this, or I'm going to find a way to help with this in that way. And that's my tie together with all of it. Unfortunately, I didn't get to say, my wonderful goodbyes to the amazing Luke Gygax, but I also served alongside him 2014 to 2018 in Long Beach. I figuratively and literally served that man food and all of his soldiers food during that time frame.
That'll make sure that gets back to
him. So I could definitely speak for Luke and seeing the way that he approached conversations with his NCOs, his officers, his junior enlisted, and his positivity and allegiance to, if you need help, get it, and I will help you get it. I will point you in the right direction. And having leaders that are ready to do that, regardless of anything else that may be going on, ready to step outside of the uniform itself and the bravado and the aggression and the trained malice that we were all instructed in, to remind you that you are still a human. And I'm a human too, and I want to see you continue to be a human on top of that, is a beautiful thing. And I think it does start at that leadership level.
Awesome.
Yeah, well said, man. That was one of the best pitches for peer support and TTRPGs I've heard, man. And
he spun that right around. He's like, okay, everybody's talked. Now I can move it to TTRPGs all at once.
And we'll kind of keep it in that sphere.
Yeah.
And Denny's a huge advocate for peer support too, and because he and I both realize, and everybody does, is that the peer supporters are the dudes who are boots on the ground, integrated with integrated with you, right? Who have felt the same things that you have felt and have gone through and can empathize and sympathize with you, and recognize those indicators that you might be going through something because they have felt the same things. And then because they have gone through those situations and they have sought help, they know the resources that are out there. They know the path to get help, and that it's not an arduous journey. I mean, it can be a little bit, but taking that first step towards seeking help can put you on that upward spiral to becoming your best self, becoming who you really are. And to tie it back to what Denny was saying is that we far too often we find ourselves doing things because it's expected of us from other people and what other people want. And in the military, there's a lot of pressure on you. There's a lot of social pressure. There's a lot of professional pressure in the sense that, hey, I can't go seek help because I'll lose my gun. If I lose my gun, I won't be able to carry my gun anymore. I won't be able to do X, Y, and Z professionally. I might not be able to apply for this job and do this more these cooler activities. Or, there's a secondary effect. If I lose my gun, now I can't carry the weight of my weight of the team, and now the social pressure kicks in. Oh, hey, dude, you're not arming up. You can't go to work. We can't do anything with you. And so even your peers start to turn on you a little bit. But you can't let that deter you from seeking help. And I think the mindset is starting to shift, and it has shifted to seeking help, and being that destigmatization of seeking help is starting. It's especially apparent in special operations because of, and I'm going to put it out there, is POTF. Preservation of the Force and Family is one of the greatest programs ever, period. And I would love to see every MAGCOM get a version of POTF because they do a great job of taking care of their troops.
What do you say? Preservation of the
Preservation of the Force and Family. It's a SOCOM
Force and Family
program. They have a team.
There's your leadership right there. Like, Matt is in the weeds right now.
Yeah. It's a great program, man. It's done wonders for the Force, and the reality of it is, like, it's going to continue. We've seen it start growing and gaining bigger waves, but it always, you meet that resistance because people tend to think that if you're preservation of family and force to make things better, you're gonna move me out of my way and move all the requirements out of the way. Now people are gonna get better because they're taking time off work, and it's like, Dude, reality is you have to take care of your troops. You have to take care of individuals in this. If that means that they go do a mindfulness session on Monday morning rather than a 5 mile run for that week, then okay. You have to be okay with it. There are concepts are coming out of the POTF that are helping so many people. And you're right, Seth. It's something that needs to be adopted across the board.
100%.
There's a memorandum being written right now for all of this. I can almost guarantee it.
Nightbot's being stupid right now, so it's blocking Matt's post, but
And that's
I
fine.
re-added it. But yeah, no, this is awesome, and I think for somebody, it was interesting because I grew up in a non-combat area, mentality in the military, but I went with. I immediately was placed into an intelligence squadron, and watching these guys go 16, 18 hours at a time just staring at screens because we were full motion video during the Middle East, and watching these people do this, and then all of a sudden, like a year or 2 years later, they're talking about integrating an entire team into these squadrons, and all of a sudden we've got a flight doctor, we have a mental health clinic on staff, they're walking around, and for a while people just kind of thought it was just kind of this thing, right? Like, but nobody would utilize them. And now that I'm out, I swear most of the time I'm like, anybody that asks me that question, like, well, what can I do? Like, you're intel, you've got a resource right there in your building, like it's completely contained, and they understand that you're dealing with these things. But yeah, it's dangerous for us because the clearance stigma is still out there. Is it going to be? Are you going to have to, if you get a polygraph or you get things like that where you're at the higher level of your clearance, and they're like, oh well, if you're mentally unstable, then you aren't going to be able to see it. So don't let anybody know. And every time I'm going to be the first person to tell you. Every time I've went to a mental health clinician and I tell them that, you got to watch their face just go complete beet red because they're angry as all hell, because they're telling you straight up, they're like, no, this can't affect your career, this cannot, and there's like a 0.00001% that it'll affect it, and that's if you're threatening to kill somebody or you're trying to do those types of things. But get your help early before it becomes something that's built up for years and years and years, like a lot of us have done, and then it explodes, and then now we're in bigger problems. So
The providers even let you know as well too, if you're talking about possibly harming yourself, as that being something that can remove your status or your clearance. Once you start seeking help, it's not even that it's removed or that you never have it. They just tell you you're just going to be on pause for right now.
Right.
And then once you come back to us and we do another full evaluation and you go, I'm good, or I'm better, and we can see it and prove it by paperwork that you're taking the steps and doing the things necessary to be better and become better, you get everything right back.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, I do know of a gentleman from one of my previous units who went through something similar to that. After coming out of it, went up another level in security clearance. So it didn't and does not hinder any forward progression. If anything, it's going to give you a chance to take a breath and address it and try and get the tools and get the answers, other than what a great deal of us were unfortunately informed of, that no, it's going to ruin everything. It's going to take everything away from you. And that's not the case at all.
Mm-hmm.
No, and I can tell you 100% from my own lived experience. If you're listening, gents, everybody, I went inpatient. I went 100% inpatient mental health treatment center. Again, Laurel Ridge Treatment Center. I can't say enough great things about it. All veterans, all active duty, all soft. And my career was not impacted. It was not. Like, my career was not impacted by me going to a mental health treatment center. And it was the single greatest thing I could have done. But when I talked earlier about that little moment of vulnerability, the thing that saved my life was being honest and saying, hey, I have an active plan I'm going to execute. And that's what led them to say, hey, we can get you here to this treatment center in El Paso in the next 48 hours. I walked in, and it was the scariest thing that you have to imagine. You're giving away all control. But you walk in, and immediately once you walk in, there's a Ranger, there's 2 Green Berets, there's a Navy SEAL, and it's like, okay, I'm here with people from my community. There are individuals from my community. I am not alone. Holy shit. That's the first moment I realized, okay, it's not because I'm just a 1% of the 1% of the 1%. Like, no, we're all human beings and we all break. You put in enough stress, you put in enough situations where you're faced with the absolute worst. You're dealing with things that no human being is meant to do their entire life and not break. You're a human. It's okay. But I can tell you right now, at no point in the chain of custody or in the moment, but for my entire treatment, was I ever any less of a service member, any less of a Green Beret? Did I lose any of my rank or access? No, it doesn't happen. It's not like that. You're there to get help. It's just like if you were going to a hospital, if you had an injury, they're not going to walk in and be like, hey, get him in room 2 and then take away his clearance. No, of course not. But we were taught these
We
things
were.
from an older guard of individuals who, hey, surprise, surprise, hurt people, people that are dealing with trauma and brokenness are going to tell you things like, don't go get help. You know, I listened to one of those individuals for a long time when he was talking at, I'm not going to say the individual's name, but it was at a battalion wide conference. And this individual gets up and he's sitting there talking bad about this medical intervention called stellate ganglion block, which ended up being amazing and it changed my life. And I always talk about it in a positive because it is, but because there's one person had this one bad experience with this one medical intervention and he had all this power. He sat there for 20 minutes and just destroyed it and said all these horrible things about it. And then years later, here I am being offered this medical intervention. The first thing comes to mind is like, oh no, that guy said not to do it, so I better not. But thankfully, I was willing to say, you know what, let me give it a try. So if you're dealing with any sort of PTSD and that ever comes as an option for you, please, stellate ganglion block, try it. It's amazing.
Awesome. Well, we're going to kind of...
Well, I'm learning a lot during this conversation.
That's like, how much can I bring back to my units, you know? Which is awesome.
Yeah, it's natural progression. When you go through something and you get better, you immediately want to help others. And that's something I realized.
Yeah, Mad Mage of the Midwest has put up some really good things over the last couple minutes just in the chat room. And it says, one of the strongest and greatest people I've ever known have had some of the most profound mental health struggles. It did not diminish them in anyone's eyes, and them being open saved multiple lives. So it's almost a nice quote. Look at, or in a quote, or a poem. Look at that.
That is the wonderful Isaac from the Arclight Court community.
Okay.
That is one of my beacons. Thank you for stopping by, Isaac.
Yeah, but we're coming down to the hour. But if y'all want to stay around, I'm happy to. But if people got to run, I understand that is a thing that has to happen. Seth is if you'd like,
I'm good to stick around.
You're gonna stick around. Is everybody good?
Yeah, I'm
I
still
gotta
good to
bounce.
stick around.
All right, cool.
But I do want to say one last thing. Vulnerability is an absolute strength. And I want everybody that's listening, everybody here in the panel, just to start shifting your mind when it comes to hearing that word vulnerability. As service members, we hear vulnerability, we immediately go to threat assessment. I can't be vulnerable. We got to have hard points everywhere. It's like, no, vulnerability. My vulnerability allows you to be vulnerable in the space that we've created, and allows you to say, hey, you know what? You're right, Denny. I need to get some help too. There's nothing wrong with that. Vulnerability opens the door for other people to be vulnerable and be willing to get help. So if you're thinking about getting help, please be vulnerable with your provider, with your best friends, your family members. Ask for help, ask for resources. You're not alone in this fight. We got through every horrible moment in the military by leaning on each other and leaning on a team. So when you go through these things, don't try to do it by yourself. Bring your family member in, bring your wife, your brothers, your sisters, everybody in. Let them know, hey, I'm not okay. Be vulnerable enough to get help, and then come back and be willing to stay in the fight by helping other people, because that's what we're meant to do. We're meant to bring others home. So thank you guys for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Appreciate you
Thanks
coming.
a lot, Denny.
Yeah, Denny.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Take care, guys.
Yep.
Peace.
Later, man.
Yeah, man. Vulnerability, a lot can be said for that. So Operation Tabletop's three core values are respect, vulnerability, and humor. And we coincidentally just made a post about it on Instagram today. But um, Dr. Brene Brown um, has a great. She's an author. She does a lot of studies on shame and vulnerability, and she has this quote that I'd like to share about vulnerability. Vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity. It is the source of hope, empathy, accountability, authenticity. So, dude, yeah, it is when you're thinking of anything that you're doing, start with being vulnerable and open with people and sharing what it is that you're going through, what you're thinking about, and you'll be surprised that people will um, run with it and help you and want to help you. And um, and we notice that a lot with Operation Tabletop when they're starting up is, hey, we have this idea and lots of people are coming out of the woodwork to help us for free. And it's been excellent, man,
That's
for
great.
sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to bow out as well. I'm gonna have family coming home here pretty quick,
No
but
worries.
I will say Denny I think hit the nail on the head as far as the comparison between mental health, PTSD, keeping it internal. You're not helping anybody, just like you're not helping anyone. You're not helping your battle brother, your battle sister when you've got a broken leg or a broken arm. The same thing is definitely true when you've got some mental issues that are keeping you from performing and not on your A game. So from that perspective, I think that carrying the water on that particular message, I think is a great analogy for anybody that thinks that this is going to hurt or hinder or that they're letting people down. Um, I know that I'll take that as well as POTFF. How are we pronouncing that acronym?
What if?
POTF.
Pot if?
POTF, yeah.
Potif,
As well as
Potif,
that, I
Potif.
know I'll
Potif.
definitely take those two things away from this conversation. So,
Awesome.
thank you
Yeah,
very much for the invite. I really appreciate being here, and then conversation was fantastic. Look forward to talking to all you guys in the future, and
Sounds good.
definitely in supporting Operation Tabletop. I appreciate what you're doing for the vets.
yeah. Thanks a lot, man. It's good to
Yep.
meet you.
Take care,
Thanks,
man.
Matt. See you.
All right, guys, we'll see you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've lost all of our good play. No, okay, just kidding.
Fair enough.
And we cut. No, really, this is the moment where we're gonna have a chance. A couple of us can stick around for a little bit longer, but I want to really kind of dive deeper into this now because this is the moments where we can talk very personal experiences where tabletop and mental health have been kind of combined together to make something amazing. So anybody can pick it up or start it off, but just kind of an experience that you've had where you've been able to use tabletop, and it's helped your mental health or it's helped friends around you. Because I know for me personally, you can play video games all day long in your own room with your own head, doing your own thing, and you're not getting any help. But the one cool thing about tabletops that a lot of people kind of give this weird thought on is that it's a friend sport. It's a team sport. It's a game that you can't play by yourself, and I think that means a lot to things like mental health because you can make sure that you're not getting in your own head. Game masters, yes, we build these stories and we build these worlds, but in the end, we're still putting our friends and our families and the people we, in all honesty, I would say the closest connection to us, um, we put them through that as well. And it sometimes can be extremely rewarding to watch your friends and families fight those demons that you're dealing with, as Ark said. So
Yeah, that was
feel
a
free.
very pivotal thing when I stepped into being a DM for the first time because I started playing back in '97.
Mhm.
And I was playing second edition. I didn't start DMing until Darren gave me that recommendation with fifth edition. And taking an idea, taking an emotion and giving it, albeit, this is TTRPGs, this is Dungeons and Dragons, Theater of the Mind, minis, all that kind of stuff, but giving it an actual physical representation. What does sadness look like to you? What does anger look like to you? And not just this amalgam of like, oh, anger is red and it's always on fire. And no, get closer, get deeper. What does anger actually look like to you? Is anger being unprepared in a moment that you felt like you should have had all of your tools lined up already? Does anxiety look like uh, getting up in the morning and trying to get to a certain place within a time frame? Now, how do you turn that into something for your players to fight against? Maybe anxiety is something that moves at an incredible speed unless it's being looked at. You don't realize that you're jittering, you're shaking, you're nervous, you're sweating until other people are seeing it and acknowledging it and going, "Hey, are you okay? Are you all right?" Anger. This is an entity that has found a way to make others around you misinterpret everything you're saying, like a charm effect. How is that affecting you, the other characters? Are they getting frustrated? Now they're feeling and understanding where when I'm angry, I can't put it into words, but I'm now affecting everyone around me because I can't put those words together. And now everyone else is getting angry, and creating those things for your players to, and like Tabletop Misfits had said, is the people who are closest to you and understand you the most, if they notice these things, they identify it so much faster with you. And now it's okay, you're angry. What am I not understanding? What am I not hearing? What am I not seeing? Let me know so I can help, so we can build off of this. If you're anxious, I'm here, take a breath. What can I move out of your way? What can I get closer to you to alleviate this burst of and need of energy, but draining effect that it's having on you? And having those in there again, and having the people extremely close to you who know you that well interact with them, that that bridges that gap that you couldn't find the wood to create beforehand. Now they're looking at it in that light, and it has been a wonderful experience for me.
I can chime in on my experience with tabletop here. I didn't want to cut you off or interrupt.
You're good.
All right, man. Yeah, so for me, I had a little bit of different experience coming back into hold on, TTRPGs. Wrote it down, no big deal.
There we go.
All right,
Solving
so
problems.
yeah, I had a little bit different experience. So when I first got out of the military, I moved away from my JBLM out to Atlanta area. And
Mhm.
when you move around away from that military family, as we call it, um, I started to feel isolated and alone. And I'm a social butterfly. I got to get out there. But I noticed civilians, nothing against civilians. I'm a civilian now, but I couldn't get groups together to hang out with. So I started reaching out to all these different programs. I did join the local VFW. Great, great people over there. They're always looking for charities to donate to. But I felt my VFW that was close by me was just a different generation of folks, and I couldn't relate as much. So I started searching again for another group, and I found Team Red, White, and Blue. I don't know if anybody's worked with
Yep.
them.
Yep.
Oh man,
Great.
I got to meet some great folks. I've got to do some really cool things with them. But I noticed again our civilian lives interrupt being able to hang out with people and in person. So I was just struggling. I got to do events, but it's every 6 months I might get to see somebody and hang out or do something. And COVID kind of brought around the Zoom and the all these online options. and I just stumbled across Operation Tabletop, and the nostalgia for me of playing D&D again. I hadn't played it since you only had a piece of paper and you had to make your own character sheet, and yeah, you were rolling the dice, and somebody, maybe one dude had a book and everybody was
Yep.
referencing it. And so I had that when I was 15, 16 years old. So I now had this option to go online and meet people from all avenues everywhere, and reconnect with my military folks, and play a game that I really enjoyed as a kid. So it's been great. I brought my son on board here recently as well, and he's enjoying it. So he's getting into it. But yeah, it's been great. I've tried to play a couple of the other games, research them, but I've just been doing the D&D for now. We did pick up Lorcana. I don't know if anybody's into that. Dude,
Yes.
that is so
Yes.
fun. I just got some cards, and I went to a local card shop and played a few, and I just showed my son, and I was like, all right, here's my scrap cards. Make yourself a deck. I challenge you. So yeah, I'm into that as well, and it's just Operation Tabletop's been great. A great group of people. We get to meet once a month. I wish we could be more, but maybe we might get another campaign going. I don't know. Hint, hint.
Yep.
But yeah, it's been great. I appreciate you guys, and I'll definitely be donating time and money if you need, and I'll post your guys' link for donations as well. I appreciate you guys.
That's
Thanks a
awesome.
lot,
Thank
Casey.
you.
Yeah, it's been great having you, man. And the guy who leads the campaign right now, for us each month, is his name's Marcus. Great dude. He's our very
Yeah.
first volunteer. Came on board very early. Was like, yeah, I would love to jump in and host a campaign and get some dudes together and do this every month. And that's been a huge help because it's allowed us as the board member, because before the board members were doing a lot of the games, and we still do our monthly game. So we do. Marcus is doing a campaign every month, and we also have our commitments to our monthly game nights as well. And that's usually a board member or two running that. But it allows us to execute our mission. Having Marcus do it allows us to execute our mission while us, the board members, focus on that strategic vision, that up and out networking and finding sponsors, and doing all of the things that nonprofits do, right? Like figuring out grant writing, what that takes. And because we're all volunteers, the board is an all volunteer force made up of veterans, made up of TTRPG enthusiasts, not people who have a lot of background in business. So we're building this thing slowly. And Casey, thanks a lot for saying your kind words, man. And we will be we're always on the prowl for more volunteers. We're also particular about who's volunteering. Marcus is a great guy. He's our ideal volunteer.
I mean,
We
if
want
you're
the right
interested in
person.
Power Rangers at any point in time,
Yeah, anybody who's into anything and has been dying to play their TTRPG, yeah, look us up, and we'll get a group. We'll find a group. We did it with BattleTech. We had some dudes local who were just dying to get into BattleTech, and we're actually having a huge event next month for that here locally in Fort Walton Beach.
That's awesome. I'm going to kind of spin this a little bit, because for me it wasn't about mental health, but it was definitely about camaraderie. I know I've told this story on the Misfits a couple times, but for something like this just hits really home. This is what the entirety of this organization, this thing right here, Tabletop Misfits, was all built during a deployment. We were sitting down in Aldafra, which for most people who know Aldafra, it's not a hard deployment. It was actually pretty chill, not going to lie. The people that have been out there with the firefights, seeing the bullets flying through over their heads, like, more power to y'all. Because I'm glad I did not have to experience that, because I don't know where I would be in that case. But for those who have deployed, and maybe you've deployed with a small unit, maybe it's not you deploying with your normal unit and you're having to go somewhere that you're uncomfortable with. For me, Tabletop was that one connection that I could kind of push out there, and if that connected, it was an easy pull. And going with less than a dozen people to a location where there's hundreds and hundreds of soldiers of all different types from 6 different countries. It was an interesting pull to try, and I know for me it's almost as if I remember more of that deployment for what our adventure was than I do because we were trying to get out of our heads. We were trying not to realize that it's 135 degrees outside and you're in the desert in the middle of nowhere, and though we weren't getting shot at, there's always, when you're in those locations, that looming fear that it could be that day. And some people have experienced that more than others. But we went from a table of 2 people, a game master and myself, and we printed out at the local area. We printed 20 sheets, not expecting to get more than 4 people. And within the first 4 weeks of a 6-month deployment, we went from 4 to 12 people from 4 different countries. So not only can that link you with people from other branches, but when you're out in those locations where everybody is, the only people you got with you is on your left and right, and you don't have anybody else, family and friends, are back home, what a great way to experience 6 months than to tell a story with a whole bunch of friends who have now become close friends my entire life. So, for those that are having problems, because I know Casey's kind of reminiscent to you, Casey, with your problem where you're like, I couldn't connect with anybody. Deployments are very similar, long form remote tours, things like that, where you are secluded, and getting those connections. And it doesn't have to be tabletop, I guess, is my biggest thing. Just find those moments where you can connect with people because you don't have anybody else, and don't do this alone, like, ever. It's just tabletop's
Share
easier.
stories. Share stories, share poetry, card games. Most of us who were in the military learned how to play dominoes and spades. Like, just any amount of time you could spend
with another individual
with
and not
another
yourself.
person is going to be extremely beneficial. Because even if it started out, I'm sitting at the table, I got the dominoes, it's been a bad day, but I'm just trying to relax, and 2-3 other people sit down at the table, 5, maybe less than 5 minutes into it, we're all laughing now. We're all joking with each other. Regardless of what our rank might have been, what branch we were in, who we had to answer to that day, we're having a good time. We're sharing all of this space and energy with each other that benefited all of us in such a positive way that those problems didn't exist anymore. I can be happy right now. I can laugh right now and not worry about, sergeant over here, staff sergeant, lieutenant crawling down my throat. I can enjoy the person next to me, even though 30 minutes ago I wanted to throw a cake pan at him because he didn't clean it correctly. But now everybody's left the defact and it's just us. We're playing dominoes and we're having a great time.
Right.
Any moment where you can sit down with another person and just be happy and be excited to share time with, or be open enough to even laugh. You don't have to talk. You don't have to immediately dive into all of the things that are bothering you at the beginning of a Texas Hold'em game. But if somebody goes, I've got 2 pairs, and puts 2 pairs of 8s on the board, and you win because you had 3 of a kind, hey, that's on you. That sucks. And just laugh at it, and then afterwards go, you had 4 of a kind, my guy. You didn't play this right. Let me help you.
You had 4 of a kind.
But just
wait, you put 2 pairs of 2s down? What the hell are you thinking?
Yeah. How do you have 2 pairs of the same thing? This doesn't make any sense. But I win because you said you only have 2 pairs.
Only have 2 pairs. And it's a joke for life, right? Like, in those moments, it's crazy because, like I said, I've been out now almost 2 years, and I remember more of those moments than I do, having to run that next test or having to do that next job or whatever. It's those moments with other people that you're like, okay, I remember these, and I can tell stories on these, and um, yeah, it's crazy. I know for those who were listening earlier about the idea that you were saying where you could, find that version of that emotion and kind of mix it into your stories. Uh, if you're looking for some examples, and I looked this up while everybody else was talking, but the shadow swarm or the shadow swarm. Let me make sure I've got
The sorrow swarm.
Sorrow swarm. Yes. So sorrow swarm are a type of monster within the Shadowfell that are based on those things. They're based on anger. They're based on hunger, loneliness, loss. But look at them. They're not that typical monster. They have uniqueness to them on why they're acting the way they do. Maybe their mannerisms are different or the way they move is different because they're trying to push that emotion of this is what I'm going through. Maybe that's not how you see anger. Maybe that's not how you feel anger. So your angry sorrow swarm is going to look different. But it definitely gives you that blueprint if you're trying to come up with those ideas. Like Will was saying earlier, like I used that to add to my stories. I use that to add to my world, bringing those emotions in that we'll seek in anyways. I don't know anybody who doesn't add at least a piece of themselves into every world they build. You can't not. It's human nature to utilize what we have, and what we have is who we are. So just a little bit of an idea for those who are trying to build those creatures and those monsters to add to their world as part of their own psyche. But yeah, we're about 10 minutes out, and I just kind of want to go around the table and any resources, any ideas, any last moment things that you'd like to share to hopefully encourage another individual, either through tabletop or through the mental health awareness, to seek help if they need it, to reach out if they need it, and maybe they're just lost and they don't know where to go. So, let's start with, if you want to start, Will, you're welcome to.
Yeah. For all of my wonderful brothers and sisters who may be here, maybe watching it afterwards, military one source. Military one source dot mil.
And it's free.
It's completely free. Even when you get out,
Mm-hmm.
it's free while you're in. Every possible resource you can think of when it comes to physical health, mental health, spiritual health, any of those things are all there. And you can get access to it. If you're afraid of medications, I understand. I have a very big fear of prescription medications in general. There are non-medicinal mental health professionals that can help you. They have a plethora of different pathways and things and tools that they can use to help you out with whatever is going on at any point in time. You can reach out to them if you're in the service, out of the service. I do believe it's even also available for dependents or family members who of people who are in the service as well. They have a whole section dedicated for that. Don't be afraid has been said so many times, but it's true. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Some of the strongest people, not even just men, some of the strongest people that have ever been a part of my life, all have had conversations, inpatient treatments, outpatient treatments for mental health. And they are some of the greatest, most inspiring, most powerful people in my life. I highly recommend it entirely. Um, if you're just looking for a space, just for the time being, to just air what you may be thinking of, what may be going through your head, look in your local city and state uh, health clinics. There are a lot that are just simple sit down and speak. They won't take any notes. They won't ask you to provide your name if you're worried about it affecting your personal careers. You can just sit down with a group of people or with a counselor one-on-one and go, this is what I'm feeling and this is what's going on. And there is somebody who can listen. Um, as far as resources, that's my big one. Is that an Operation Tabletop? But I'm pretty sure Seth's going to be gone here pretty soon, so I'll let Seth talk about Operation Tabletop. But Operation Tabletop, you should definitely check that out.
All right. Thank you for all those, and especially I've used Military One Source. Will's used Military One Source. I'm sure that it is such an amazing opportunity, and you can get, you can get non-clinical, you can get, non-medical providers, all these things, and it's open 24/7. Like looked at the website right now, it says free 24/7 support for, you know, that's what you're looking for. Casey, is there anything you want to add or anything that's helped you in your mental health struggles?
Yeah, since you guys already stole the spotlight of Military One Source, yeah, for me, I found, and this I know it's probably in all the other communities too, right? The TACP community for us, we have a lot of the Facebook groups.
Okay.
And these Facebook groups, a lot of these guys are facing the same challenges that you might be uh, facing. And a lot of these guys will, on these Facebook groups, if you guys are part of them, they'll, reach out for help or be soliciting help on those sites. There's one fellow on one of our sites that he reaches out quite a bit, and sometimes we can't get a hold of him, so guys are calling him and everything. So just within your community of friends, family, and your military family, that's been the best source for me, personally.
Yeah, I've not seen, like, for me, like I said, I wasn't the most like specialized version of the military. I do know there are those groups though. There are very very specialized groups because they've dealt with those things that those individuals are dealing with. TACP, PJ, Navy SEALs, all those, they have those groups out there for a reason. They're not people. They're not just building them just to build them. There's a reason for it, and it's because the ones that have been through it want to share, and the ones that have been through it want to make sure that you aren't dealing with that same situation. So, or if you are dealing with it, how to help with it. So, on that note, and since this is our special guest, we'll move it over to Seth. Talk about Operation Tabletop.
I think our special guest left a while ago, but I appreciate it. I'm flattered. Yeah, I think the best thing that anyone could do is to find a community, find your tribe, just like Casey was saying, is join a Facebook group of like-minded individuals. Biasly, I will say join Operation Tabletop. And if you're into the tabletop community, right? And because once you're there, taking that first step to being social and engaging with people, and then being an active and willing participant in your recovery, to open up, be vulnerable, play a silly character at a game, if you're playing a TTRPG, creating a character with intention, just like Dr. Kilmer was saying during our session, James.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if there's something about you need to work on, like you're very impulsive or you have anger issues, or you're really sad and depressed, play a character that opposes that, and you can work on those issues. You can use it as those kind of tools to be better. And we'll say it over and over again. Don't be afraid to seek help. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable, and to open up to people, and to find someone, a confidant that you can open up to and share a story with, and listen to the people around you when they say, hey, I've noticed these things about you, you're worrying me, or whatever, and say, I think you should check out these resources. If someone tells you or suggests a resource to you, just go do it, man. Especially if it's free. Just do it. Because that person cares about you, and they're seeing something that you're not. because the little things that are eating you up inside, anxiety, depression, the underlying cause of those things, maybe some sort of traumatic experience, they're very, very subtle at getting at you and eating away at you and putting you on that downward spiral. Before you even know it, you're at the bottom of the bottle. And people out in your sphere of influence or your circle, I should say, your inner circle will notice those things before you do and watch out for it because they will be like, hey man, are you okay? When you hear someone ask you that, be like, all right, I need to go talk to somebody. I need to work on something, figure this out, and get some feedback and figure out what resources you can use to address that underlying issue that's causing you to have anxiety, causing you to have depression. Um, and I'm just speaking from personal experience.
No, these are great. Like I said, I didn't really know how the Veterans Roundtable was going to go, and it couldn't have gone any better. We've got such an amazing group of veterans here, and active duty and Guard Reserve that are here, and seeing the different puzzle pieces kind of come together, where it doesn't matter where you came from in the military, or how long you were in, or how little you were in. Um, we all went through something, and we were all changed by it. But the great part is that we've all learned now how to combat that. And we're hoping that this little Veterans Roundtable will give those people that are connected to our TTRPG community that are veterans or are active duty, um, hopefully those same resources that they're going to need. Because I think a lot of times we don't look for those resources. And it's not until somebody brings it up, like you said, Seth, that, hey, you doing all right? Like, I think personally for me, if I hear that, especially from somebody that I care about or somebody that cares about me, I'm definitely going to take a step back and go, okay, what's different? What am I thinking that they're seeing? Or I'm going to ask. And that's the biggest one, is make sure that you're asking those questions. If somebody says, hey, are you all right? Ask them why you think they think that way. Ask them, maybe there's a reason behind it. Maybe there's more to it. Or
And be honest.
yeah, maybe you honest. You're like, no, man, I'm having a rough one right now. I'm having a hard time, and I don't know what to do. Um, and it's a big deal. So, once again, thank you three for hanging around past the normal time. Hopefully, those that have been in the chat for a while, if you have any questions, make sure you're tossing those out. Both now and go on. If we missed a question, go on one of our social medias. We've all been posting about this. Put that question in there. I would hate to have something happen where this is watched 3-4 months from now, and it's like, I don't know how to get a hold of this person. Put those questions in those social medias. We will reach out. Somebody will get back to you from this crew, and hopefully this is just the start to a very large amount of awareness to our TTRPG friends and family that have done this, that have been in the service. So once again, thank you all for joining us. If you haven't yet, Arclight has an amazing TTRPG channel himself. It's all based around Power Rangers, and it's an incredible opportunity to see a different TTRPG and still see those storytelling elements go towards it. Definitely go check out Seth's Operation Tabletop. If you have not joined their Discord, it is surrounded with this mentality involved, where it is tabletop at its front and mental health awareness in the back end. We hope that it is a good opportunity for more and more people to get involved with that. If you've donated over this last month, thank you very much. It means a lot to them. It means a lot to our communities and whatnot. Casey, I know you don't have any social platform, but it is such an awesome opportunity to have you here as somebody who has been through this kind of stuff. And it was such an opportunity and a great opportunity to play with you when we played the TTR or the D&D one shot a couple weeks ago. But yeah,
I don't have a social platform, but I do run Warcry apparel. If anybody needs a shirt,
Ooh, I'm always down for new apparel. I'm done modeling for multiple TTRPG apparel companies.
Yeah, throw a link up
Yeah,
into
throw
the
a link.
Discord.
Yeah, throw a
Okay.
link up on that.
Okay, I will.
You can throw it in Zoom too, and I'll pop it into the chat.
Oh, okay.
But,
Yeah. Here, I'll pop it up.
yeah, and once again, thank you all for coming to hang out with us tonight. Hopefully, you got something out of this that's going to help either you or somebody you know. And what an honor it was to be both the beginning and the end talk show for Operation Tabletop's PTSD Awareness Month. So, without any further ado, hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Check out Arclight Court and myself on Twitch. Go hang out with Operation Tabletop on Discord. And here soon, check out Warcry Apparel because everybody needs a new shirt. And
Always
always need
Always
a new
got a
shirt.
new shirt. And I design. I don't just take old designs and send them out there. I can make designs for you.
Awesome. Well, everybody,
Yeah.
have a wonderful week. This is the end of our PTSD Awareness Month, and thank you once again for coming to hang out with us. And we'll see you guys all in the future.
All right.
Thanks.
Later.
Are we off air?